Lord Robert Cecil by Hannah Ho, Jacob Castaneda, and Giovanni Calabria. Introduction/background. Lord Robert Cecil Salisbury, born 1830, died 1903, was a British politician and statesman. He served as Secretary of State for India, Foreign Secretary, and Prime Minister 3 times. A conservative politician, Lord Cecil led Britain in a period known as Splendid Isolation, where Britain avoided costly alliances and was considered a strong and effective leader, cited by the records for UK Parliament. Lord Cecil during the U.S. Civil War. During the American Civil War, Robert Cecil was writing political publications and news articles criticizing Britain's foreign affairs. He would write against an aggressive foreign policy and instead pushing for a conservative outlook. Before becoming a member of Parliament, while a member of Parliament, he pushed for the separation of church and state, as well as standing against change to the electoral system, cited by Bentley and Michael. Agenda. As a member of the British Conservative Party, they were forced more focused on domestic affairs and saw the war through a neutral lens. Before the Civil War, Lord Cecil would stand against reform and change to the British parliamentary system, even resigning from office out of protest of the Reform Act of 1867, which would have changed the voting system of Parliament, allowing suffrage to male workers in Britain. Cecil quite clearly opposed such change before the American Civil War. Lord Cecil's opinion of war. Like many Americans, the British were also divided in regards to the Civil War. To Lord Robert Cecil, the American Civil War was a detriment to the American experiment of democracy. British conservatives of his era saw America as a self-righteous state, the proclamation of personal liberties painted by them as a self-proclaimed champion of democracy, cited by the autobiography essays by Cecil. Therefore, Lord Robert Cecil saw the Civil War as a contradiction to what America apparently stood for. At the end of the war, Lord Cecil saw the war as a travesty, and an example of what happens when the majority marginalize and oppress the minority. That is pretty ironic, coming from one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. Progression of Lord Cecil's opinion. Lord Cecil's agenda on workers' rights would be heavily influenced by the American Civil War, as it would have on all British conservatives in his era. The conflict would affect Cecil's agenda on suffrage in Britain and would lead him to being in favor of suffrage reform in the 19th century. At the beginning, Cecil was more focused on domestic affairs. He eventually grew sympathetic to the Southern Confederates, but not enough to be involved, as his party believed in a hands-off approach in regards to global affairs, cited by political articles by Cecil. Conclusion. By researching Lord Robert Cecil and looking at him as an observer and commentator of the Civil War, we can find more ways the conflict was more than a domestic event. Lord Robert Cecil can be seen as an example of a politician who had a more conservative opinion on global affairs. It then affected the global community, and in this case, the mind of an important British statesman. We can now see how the American Civil War influenced